Hello and welcome to Show Tuned, a podcast about musicals and the craft of storytelling through song.
Where each week we explore the layers of ways that songs tell stories, from melodies to harmonies, lyrics to dialogue, characters to scenes, and how it all comes together in this unique medium where the songs are the engine of the story. I'm Brett Boles, a professional songwriter, educator, and the creator of the hit TikTok and Instagram series The MT, where I've been spilling the tea on why certain musical theater songs make us feel things. And I'm the founder of the MT Studio, where I help songwriters hone their craft.
And I'm Josh Shelton. I am a songwriter and a filmmaker and the founder of Counterpoint Musicals, which is a production company making new movie musicals because I think we need more of those. But today we're going to be talking about theater, and I'm very excited to dive into that. And also just a reminder, we are here to have more than just a conversation between Brett and I. It is truly an exploration of what makes this genre of storytelling, musicals, stories told through songs, so unique. And we're having this conversation for anyone who loves musicals, whether you're a performer or a writer or a fan. We are here to get you all excited about musicals. And today we are going to talk about the Tonys because they just happened last night.
Tonys. Yes, the 79th annual Tony Awards. How exciting.
Yeah. And so we are going to dive into the musicals, of course, that were some of the big winners tonight and have a chat. Brett has seen the two big winners. I have not. So I'm going to ask a lot of questions, but also chime in with some of the stuff that makes these unique. Excited to chat to you about it, Brett.
Yeah, me too. This was a light year for new musicals. Cinco Paul mentioned that in his speech. I think there were only 6 musicals this season, which is very, very light, and only 3 nominated. So for best musical anyway. It was a weird season.
Yeah, slightly weird season, but still some great shows and some great tunes and incredible performances. So we'll dive into that. Also, stick around to the end of the episode. We're going to share what we're listening to this week. And also just a reminder that we record bonus content for anyone who is a paid member on Patreon. And you can join as a free member on Patreon. We're building a community there, and so we'd love to have you hop over there, join the community. But if you can afford to be a paid member and want to support the podcast, we also record bonus content over there. And for this episode's bonus content, we're actually going to do something a little unique.
Yeah, in my songwriting program, I do these monthly musical deep dives where over the course of an entire month, we break down and analyze entire musical theater scores as a class, and I lead a discussion, and we go really in depth. So what I'm going to do is include one of those episodes as our bonus content, where you'll get to see some really in-depth analysis of Ragtime, since that was the big winner for Revival of a Musical last night. That's what we're going to do.
Fantastic. And I'm excited to watch that myself and listen to it. So that's so great. Thanks for sharing that. But before we get into all of that, we start every episode with my I Want song for the week. Now, Brett, do you have an I Want song for this week?
I do have an I Want song for this week, actually. So my girlfriend and I are currently thinking about buying a house. So I want a house.
I love that. I have to believe that there might be a song in a show somewhere that is I Want a House.
Somewhere That's Green.
Of course, Somewhere That's Green, or what's the one in Sweeney Todd? But by the sea, or
yeah, by the sea, or all I want is a room somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Well, anyway, great. I Want a House.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic song, and
Yeah.
it's something that's so exciting. Exciting.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. What about you?
Summer starts this week for my kids. So last day of school is this week, which means summer starts this week. So I want to have a great summer. I want to go to the beach. I want to, go to the pool, and I want to just give my kids a super fun summer and have summer fun time. So that's not sure what the hook is, but
Summer fun times. I like that. Why not?
Summer fun time. Yeah. It's time for summer fun time. Yeah. So there we go. Great. And as always, if you have an I Want song, we want to hear your I Want songs. What do you hope to accomplish this week or just enjoy or this month or this year? So yeah, that's the whole point is keep us in check and set some intention and have a little bit of fun.
That's right.
All right, so let's dive into the Tony Awards. The two big winners of the night on the musical side were Schmigadoon for Best Musical and Ragtime for Best Revival of a Musical. And I mean, I think those are the two we're going to focus on. There were a couple other winners as well.
Yeah, those are the big ones. And I saw Schmigadoon and I saw Ragtime. I did not see Lost Boys, which was the other musical that was nominated for Best Musical this year. It is worth noting, however, kind of cool that Schmigadoon is only the sixth Best Musical winner where one person wrote the book, music, and lyrics, and that is Singo Paul.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing and completely unique. Or well, the other times it's happened, just for educational purposes, I believe it is The Mystery of Edwin Drood, Rupert Holmes. Of course, there's Rent, Jonathan Larson. There's Hamilton, Lin-Manuel Miranda. Hadestown, Anais Mitchell. A Strange Loop, Michael R. Jackson. And now here we are with Schmigadoon.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Some history being made.
Yeah. The other one to note from the night is Cats, the Jellicle Ball, which is a really cool reimagining of Cats that won a couple of awards. I think it won two, maybe two or three. Yeah.
Yeah, really cool that they were able to totally reimagine that show. That score that was written so long ago, and it's a totally different experience now. I haven't seen it, but I've seen clips and I've heard from friends of mine who have gone to see it that it's just this great celebration. And what I've been told is this is the way to see Cats. If you're going to see Cats, you should see it this way.
Absolutely. Cats is one of those, shows that became so iconic, but also over time, it is such a bizarre sort of show. But I heard I think it was when Phantom closed. It was like the first time in 40 years that there was no Andrew Lloyd Webber show on Broadway, which is so amazing and so crazy. But I love that then they reimagined Cats, the Jellicle Ball, and it's more of an immersive experience for anyone that doesn't know. It's more of a immersive experience. I love that it's like Andrew Lloyd Webber's back and winning Tonys. I mean, not him personally, but his show.
Yeah, it's crazy. I saw an interview with him, and he mentioned that he thinks T.S. Eliot would really have enjoyed this particular production of Cats.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. And again, I don't want to dismiss it. It won Best Direction of a Musical. It took home big prizes. Best choreography. So yeah, really, really incredible. Congrats to Cats. But we're going to dive a little bit more into Ragtime and Schmigadoon, taking home Best Musical, Best Revival of a Musical. Also, Ragtime took home Best Leading Actor in a Musical and Best Leading Actress in a Musical with Joshua Henry and
Casey Levy.
Casey Levy, sorry.
Yep. Yeah, it's great. And so another little funny little tidbit about Ragtime is that originally when the show premiered on Broadway that year, it lost the Tony Award to The Lion King, and this year it won against Cats. So both feline related competitions there. Lost one and won one. So
yeah, I love it. I love the little stories like that. And so Ragtime, you mentioned when it first came out. So Ragtime is this sweeping American epic that follows three communities colliding at the dawn of the 20th century, and it's about a stifled upper class wife, a determined Jewish immigrant, and a daring young Harlem musician is the synopsis I'm reading here. And they unite over this courage and belief in the promise of the future, and their potential journeys intertwine with historic figures, including Houdini and Henry Ford and Booker T. Washington and Evelyn Nesbit. And the thing is, it's a story that is about America and about these blending of cultures, and of course about racism and all these issues that unfortunately continue to be relevant today as they were when the show originally premiered in the 90s, as when the novel is based on was written in the 70s, and of course going back to the beginning of America. So really powerful show, really incredible.
And it happens to be my personal favorite musical of all time. So I am very happy to see it win Best Revival of a Musical. And Lynn Ahrens and Stephen Flaherty are also sort of personal favorites of mine. I think their writing is so spot on and so smart, both intellectually and emotionally and dramatically, and from a narrative perspective. They're just they're really, really smart writers. And Terrence McNally, one of my favorite theatrical titans. The way that Terrence structured the book of Ragtime is amazing to me, because when you look at each character's actual stage time separately, the principals, it's not that much stage time, but yet you come to care so deeply about each of their stories and each of their journeys. And that's a big credit to Terrence McNally and the way that he structured the book on this.
Yeah, it's incredible. And Terrence McNally, he also, wrote Kiss of the Spider Woman and Masterclass, and the songwriting team of Lynn Ahrens and Stephen Flaherty. Talk about a breadth of work.
Mm-hmm.
This story is this incredible American, story about racism, immigration, and everything. They also wrote Seussical, the musical, I believe, and also Anastasia, and just quite a range within this songwriting team. It's incredible.
Yeah, they just had an interview with them, and Lynn Ahrens was saying how she thought they were sort of chameleons of the musical theater world, and I think that's true in a lot of ways. They've written a whole bunch of shows on a whole variety of topics that really, I mean, it's just the range is really, really incredible.
Yeah. And also, so it originally won the Tony in 1998 for Best Book and Best Original Score, is my understanding. And then there was a revival in 2009. And now there is this revival that originally started at the Lincoln Center Theater in 2025. And then the same cast was able to transfer over to the Broadway production, which is also just so fantastic for that whole creative team.
I have to say I saw it twice when it was at Encores at City Center, and before it transferred to Broadway. The first time I was sort of sitting in the nosebleeds, and then the second time I sat in the fifth row, direct center of the orchestra, and it was for the final. It was the final performance of the Encores version of it, and I remember the electricity in the house that night was unlike anything I've ever experienced. I would say that experience that night will probably go down as the most electrifying theatrical experience of my entire life. There were 7 standing ovations during the course of that show that night. It was crazy.
Wow. Oh my God. So what can you pull back the layers a little bit on what makes both this show or this production specifically really be so electric?
Yeah, it's so ephemeral. It's hard to put a finger on exactly what makes something hit when it does. I think it's a whole mixture of things that are going on. There's a certain alchemy involved in all of this that's hard to pinpoint, but I think it has something to do with the times that we're living in. I think for a lot of reasons, the show is really resonating right now with folks. Also, I think it has to do with the talent that's involved. Joshua Henry as Colehouse Walker Jr., it's like he's a once in a generation talent. And I don't think there was no way he was not winning this Tony. I mean, this was Josh's Tony since he was 13 years old when the show originally opened. Like he was meant to win this Tony. And Casey's great in the show as well. She actually left Lost Boys, or she was supposed to star in Lost Boys on Broadway, and decided to leave the production to do Ragtime, which worked out really well for her, and it also worked out really well for Shoshana Bean, who took her place in Lost Boys and also won a Tony this year. So it worked out pretty well for both of them.
And on the note of Joshua Henry, he's also just such a great artist for these times as well. If you follow him on social, he's very honest and shares the journey of being an artist and of being a performer. And he's just a very sort of open facing performer, which is really inspiring and cool to see for someone who's performing at the highest level.
Yeah, he does talk a lot about the ups and downs of the business. And I mean, he's been nominated, I think, 4 times before this for Tonys, and has had a lot of, he was in a show that was supposed to transfer to Broadway before the pandemic and then didn't. So there have been a lot of ups and downs in his career. And for this Tony to finally come to him for this role is something really, really special. And also for this show itself to win a Tony Award, it's come a long way. I mean, since it lost the Tony Award, or I shouldn't say lost, but it didn't win the Tony Award when it first premiered in the late 90s, and then again was shut out of the 2009 scene after the previous revival, and now to have it back and it's in all its glory and splendor, and to win its Tony Award is almost like a another representation of Josh's own journey with the Tony. So pretty cool.
Yeah, and the other thing I want to say, as someone who comes from the film side, this is another reminder of what makes the theater so unique and so special is the revival, the ability for a show to come back with a new cast and with a new creative team, and that reinterpretation, and that it can connect with audiences over decades. It's another great inspiring reminder of what's so magical about, stage productions of musicals and the musical theater and everything. I love this story. I love it as a story.
That's great.
And what about the music itself or the show itself? I mean, I know sort of the tunes I think that people might know from the show are like Wheels of a Dream, or the opening number Ragtime.
Yeah. So this, talk about a sweeping, epic score. This what I find so incredible about the way that Stephen Flaherty has constructed this score is that the essence of this ragtime music is woven into the fabric of the entire score through all 3 groups of characters: the white, upper class characters, the immigrant characters, of which Tate is sort of the breakout role for that, and then the black cast, the Harlem cast, of which Colehouse and Sarah are sort of representative. That Stephen managed to weave this ragtime feel through all 3 of those groups in a really, really interesting way. And ragtime being the kind of music that was breaking through back then, being the centerpiece of the entire show, really is a statement about what was going on in America at the time, how things were changing, culture was changing and shifting, and by using music to help symbolize that and represent that's really cool. And so not only does Stevens' composition reflect that, but the other real star of the show are Bill Brohn's orchestrations, which are just magnificent. And Ragtime currently, I believe, is the largest orchestra on Broadway right now. I can't remember how many pieces it is, but it's just crazy. And it's the original Bill Brohn orchestration. And God, Bill was just a masterful orchestrator. And this show is it's mind blowing.
Yeah, listening to the recordings, it is just so big and so epic. As I said, I haven't seen the show, but I did watch the performance on the Tonys, and I was also just blown away by the staging. And it reminded me, again, how theater is this really cool visual medium where you're seeing these 3 stories come to life, these 3 different groups, like you said, on stage at the same time and mixing together and interacting with each other just throughout the course of that first song, which again, as a filmmaker, I'm reminded, to do that in film is very different and tricky, but you see it on a stage and I'm just pulled into the world through this really cool staging that I was blown away by.
Yeah, it really makes you lean in. And the opening number does such a fantastic job of setting the tone of the show and the world, and it sets you in place and time. And what I also find so amazing about that opening number, usually in in the theater, we save opening numbers, we save writing opening numbers until sort of towards the end of the process, because things are going to change. And usually, if you write an opening number first, you end up changing it later. But this opening number was one of the audition pieces that Lynn and Steven wrote as their audition to be the writers on the show. And it stayed virtually untouched throughout the entire thing. And what you're seeing now on the stage is pretty much the exact number that they wrote for their audition, which is just mind-blowing.
It is mind-blowing, and also it is one of those tunes that sets the whole thing up. I watch that and I know what the show's about. It's so clear. And yet I also, it doesn't feel like there's going to be repeated beats. It's setting the stage, and you see these three different communities all coming together in America with this big epic American sounding score. Ragtime, of course, being a very American art form, and it's so captivating. I really, just watching the Tony performance, I was drawn in and saying, oh man, I wish I could see this show.
Hopefully it'll be running for a long time to come.
Yeah. And the other thing I wanted to say is that that opening number is a classic opening number. And like you said, we've talked about how oftentimes opening numbers get written at the end to set up the whole show. In this case, the fact it was their demo or their audition song, that's incredible.
Crazy.
But then one of the other, big tunes from the show is Wheels of a Dream. And in one of our other episodes, we talked about using metaphor to write songs, and just what a beautiful phrase, Wheels of a Dream, and what a beautiful song.
He will ride on the wheels of a dream. Well, it's just, yeah, it's, and what makes it all the more powerful in that moment is the fact that Cole House has bought a car, and as a black person in that time period, that was very rare that a black person would have the means to be able to afford to buy a car, and he did. And that car was everything. That car was not only his way of traveling physically into the future, but also metaphorically, and for his son and his family. And it's just what a brilliant metaphor.
Yeah. So the show was directed by Lear de Bessonnet, who was the artistic director of Lincoln Center, but also directed the show. And she said that the quote is, "I think about the promise and the wound of America being right next to each other is what makes the story of Ragtime endlessly relevant," which I just think is perfectly put.
Yeah, that sums up our country pretty well, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And it's just a reminder that we need art like this to exist, and it's important to bring it back and celebrate it. And to your point about the Tony specifically, it feels like Joshua Henry was born to play this role, and that Cassie Levy, as the role of mother, could have left for Lost Boys but stayed, and she gave a great acceptance speech about being a mother, and just a lot of really, really powerful, themes going on and stories all coming together for this show.
That's Ragtime.
Yeah. So on the other end of the spectrum, we have Schmigadoon.
And now for something completely different.
Yeah, which not only is the tone in the show itself is this completely farcical comedy about people getting trapped in a musical, it comes from a TV show, which comes from my understanding is that Cinco Paul had the idea for this 20 years before the TV show, which came out, 5, 6 years, 7 years ago? Like, this is such a long time in the making, and just kind of the total opposite of Ragtime. And the thing that I want to note, and you touched on this when we were chatting, Brett, is this idea of, on one hand, if you watch the show, it can feel like it's making fun of musicals, but ultimately it is a love letter to musicals. And Brett, you actually saw it, so I would love, where do you want to dive in on Schmigadoon?
Yeah, I think it's one of the best things I've seen in a very, very long time. It feels It just feels like a love letter to musical theater. And it is. And Cinco Paul is a huge, Cinco Paul, who wrote the book, music, and lyrics for the show, is a huge musical theater fan. And if you're a songwriter, particularly a musical theater songwriter, you can tell when you listen to those songs how deeply he has studied the craft of the masters, the sounds of Meredith Willson, who wrote The Music Man, and Rosalind Hammerstein and Lerner and Lowe, and it does so brilliantly. Each song is unique enough to feel new, but also just pastiche enough to you can sort of identify exactly the song in the original, like, Golden Age musical that it's taken from. So much fun. I mean, the book is great. It's funny. I mean, I was laughing my butt off the entire time I was there. And I think the more you understand and appreciate musical theater references, the more you're gonna enjoy the show. But anybody could go and have just a wonderful, rollicking, good time.
Yeah, and I think it's also great to have a show like this that is just a big classic musical in so many ways, with big dance numbers and bright colors, but in a new way. As much as we were just celebrating revivals, we should always have revivals. It's nice to have a new version of that. And the other thing I love about it, which in a little bit of research we were doing on the history of the show, is that he had this idea a long, long time ago. His original idea was actually inspired by an American Werewolf in London, where he thought, well, wouldn't it be funny if two backpackers stumbled into a musical instead of a horror film? But he says the concept crystallized when he realized it should be about a couple that is trapped there until they find true love, which again is such a great premise for a musical. It comes back to that love story.
It really is. And Schmigadoon, of course, is a play on Brigadoon, which is the musical where, the fantastical town appears, once every 100 years. And it's, so it's a play on the old musicals.
Yeah. And it's a perfect fit. So the other thing about Schmigadoon at the Tonys, and you referenced this at the top of the episode, I think, is that Cinco Paul, in his acceptance speech, he said there were only 6 new musicals this season, and that's not enough. And we need more new musicals on Broadway, and encouraged everyone to support musicals, which of course we do. And obviously, if you're listening to this show, I assume you're supporting musicals, and we had some great ones this year. Even with only 6, there were some great ones, and definitely worth checking out. And hopefully some of them will go on tour and all of that.
Yeah, tours are great. You bring theater to the people instead of forcing the people to come to theater. I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah, and for all the performers, it's important and much needed work to get out there, get on the road, and perform. So I'm excited. Hopefully next time I'm in New York, I will definitely, if I'm there while Ragtime's still running, I definitely want to see that. If I can catch Brigadoon, I certainly want to, or Schmigadoon, I certainly want to. I mean, I think there is a chance. There's a chance that Schmigadoon could break out because it is so accessible. I don't know if it'll break out on a Book of Mormon level, but I don't know. Do you think there's a chance it could sort of break out?
I think there's a chance. What I'm more certain of is that show will live on forever in touring companies and community theaters, and high schools will do it forever and ever and ever.
Yeah, that's a good point. That'll definitely go, because it is such an easy entry point where you're having fun with the genre. And if you know the references, you are going to really enjoy it. But even if you only kind of know the references or don't know them at all, it's funny enough and engaging enough that you're just pulled in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I also think it's a great way to teach up and coming generations of musical theater performers and writers also about the shoulders of the giants that we all stand on, these original sort of golden age musical theater writers, through the medium of a musical that sort of pokes gentle fun at all of it. Loving fun, I should say.
I love that. And once the original cast recording is available, we'll do at least one or more episodes on it, I'm sure.
For sure.
So I think that's a good little recap of some of the Tony highlights for this year, and excited to hear everyone else's thoughts on the Tony Awards, or the shows themselves. The award show is fun as always. But before we go, Brett, what are you listening to this week?
This week has been the majority of my listening happens in the car. The listening we've been doing has been random musical theater playlists. So it's been a lot of some contemporary, like the Big Fish, and the last 5 years there's been some Norbert Leo Butz stuff going on, and there's also been some classic, Carousel and My Fair Lady and Oklahoma. So it's been the gamut of theater songs we've been listening to over the past week.
Great, I love it. I'm also going to recommend a playlist. One of my go-to is Gypsy Jazz. Gypsy Jazz, Django Reinhardt, Stefan Grappelli. It's just such great music that I find perfect to put on in the background of a party, or if you're, hanging out outside, or going for a drive, put on some Gypsy Jazz in the background. It's just a fun vibe because you got the mix of that. You have the fiddle with kind of that chunk 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 guitar. It's just a cool vibe. So that's my recommendation: Gypsy Jazz.
Excellent.
Yeah. All right. Well, as always, thank you so much for listening. Hop over to Patreon, join as a free member. For paid subscribers, Brett's going to share one of his deep dives on ragtime. And yeah, thanks again.
And as always, if you have a mother, cousin, lover, sister, brother, cousin's roommate's best friend who loves musicals, please spread the word, share the joy. We like to reach as many people and spread the love of musical theater as well.
Absolutely. So thanks again. This has been Show Tuned, a podcast about musicals and the craft of storytelling through song. Have a great day.